In the shimmering heat of the Persian Gulf lies a small peninsula that punches. Far above its weight, state of Qatar, once a quiet collection of pearling villages and fishing ports, Qatar has transformed itself into a center of global energy, finance, and diplomacy, a desert state turned powerhouse on the world stage. Its story is one of stark contrasts. Traditional Bedouin culture interwoven with ultra-modern skylines. Centuries-old customs coexisting with avant-garde architecture. And swift economic change reshaping a very old societal fabric. Qatar's journey from coastal settlement and small-scale trade to a hydrocarbon-rich oil and gas titan defines much of the Middle East's economic map. Massive reserves of natural gas, among the largest in the world, have fueled its transformation, fueling wealth that enabled the state to invest in infrastructure, modernization, and soft power projection. But beyond energy, Qatar has leveraged its wealth to cultivate a global profile. International media influence, mega-event hosting, investment abroad, and diplomacy that reaches far beyond its modest population. In a volatile region, defined by shifting alliances, historical rivalries, and geopolitical fault lines, Qatar has carved out a niche as both a broker and an outlier, often playing mediator, sometimes provocateur, but always quietly essential. Culturally, Qatar straddles the line between tradition and ambition. The desert heritage, tribal links, Islamic values, hospitality remains an undercurrent in national identity. At the same time, Doha's skyline of glass towers, museums, art districts, and world-class sporting venues testifies to a deliberate vision to craft a 21st century identity rooted in global relevance. From the resplendent souks to cutting-edge urban design, the nation invites the world to reimagine what a small Gulf monarchy can become. Politically, Qatar occupies a delicate spot. It is ruled by a monarchy with power concentrated in the royal family, but has nonetheless positioned itself as a vital interlocutor between East and West, Sunni and Shia, the global North and the rest. Its size belies its influence in matters of regional security, diplomatic negotiations, energy supply, global media. Qatar's actions ripple across continents. With a stable source of revenue from gas, it has financial independence. With strategic geographic location, it exerts diplomatic leverage. With ambition, it pursues global visibility and relevance. Economically, despite being small in land and population, Qatar's per capita wealth is among the highest globally. The state has poured resources into infrastructure, education, health, and diversification efforts to prepare for a post-hydrocarbon era. In recent decades, Qatar has hosted massive sporting events, cultural festivals, and invested heavily in arts and global institutions, signaling a transition from energy-only economy to diversified global player. From dunes to diplomat, the early life of Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Al-Thani. In the golden heat of the Arabian Peninsula, amid the rising skyline of Doha and the undulating sands of the Gulf, a child was born on November 1st, 1980. The future architect of a new Qatari chapter, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman, was brought into a world steeped in privilege, yet burdened with high expectations. in a country straddling tradition and transformation. From an early age, the rhythms of desert life, tribal heritage, Islamic values, and the austere stillness of the Gulf would mingle with the quiet but growing hum of a nation awakening to ambition. Though born into the elite circles of the ruling dynasty, life for young Mohammed was not just about ease or indulgence. It was shaped by the palpable tension between legacy and possibility. On one side lay ancestral expectations, lineage, and duty. On the other, the tumult and promise of change, as Qatar began to emerge as a global energy giant, a diplomatic outpost, and a growing economic hub. Growing up between these worlds, Mohammed absorbed early lessons in identity and responsibility, the weight of heritage, and the stirring demand for relevance in a shifting world. Family and background forged the first contours of his character. In private homes, over quiet conversations, perhaps elders spoke of honor, sovereignty, and the future of Qatar. Somewhere between those stories, a sense of purpose must have awakened. In his schooling years, as the Gulf pumped with oil and gas wealth and Doha rose brick by steel glass tower, Mohammed looked around and saw more than privilege. He sensed opportunity. The contrast between simple desert traditions and the glinting promise of modernization seeded a restless curiosity, a yearning to build not just for himself, but for a nation poised at the crossroads of history. More than that, the early awareness that Qatar's small size belied its potential. That a tiny peninsula, with a handful of sand-blown villages and a nascent city, might command attention on a global stage. For a young Mohammed, this dual identity, rooted in tribal legacy yet reaching for global ambition, must have carved a path in his psyche, shaping ambition, humility, and a vision far bigger than any single life. In those quiet years before public offices and grand titles, the dreams took root. The desert stories, the family expectations, the rising towers outside, all converging to shape a boy who would become a diplomat, a builder, a leader, long before cameras, headlines, or world stages. The inner journey began, of heritage meeting aspiration, tradition merging with progress, identity evolving into ambition. This early life, modest in its intimacy, vast in its possibilities, laid the foundation. And with that foundation, the journey toward global influence quietly, steadily began. Minds forged in sand and school, education and emerging mindset. In the rising city of Doha, where ancient desert wines meet the hum of modern towers, the young sheikh, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al-Thani entered adolescence with a sense of possibility, shaped by a world in transition. Born into the ruling Al-Thani family on November 1st, 1980, he grew up enveloped in privilege, but also in a Qatar that was rapidly redefining itself. In 2003, Sheikh Mohammed graduated from Qatar University, earning a bachelor's degree in economics and business administration. That academic milestone was more than just a credential. It marked the birth of a leader whose worldview would blend economic pragmatism, global sensibility, and deep-rooted allegiance to his homeland's heritage. Around him, Qatar was booming. Gas revenues, ambitious infrastructure, soaring skylines, but also wrestling with the challenges of modernization, identity, and global scrutiny. At university, in classrooms shaded by Qatar. Universities' modern facades, yet echoing with centuries-old regional debates. Mohammed observed not only the mechanics of economics, but the forces shaping societies, growth, inequality, opportunity, responsibility. The contrast between tradition and global ambition, already visible in Doha's evolving skyline, resonated with him. He absorbed lessons in commerce, trade, governance, but also in what it means to serve a nation on the cusp of great change. Emerging from the lecture halls, he carried with him a quiet ambition to channel knowledge into action. The world he studied was not abstract, it was Qatar itself, a country negotiating heritage and future, local tradition and global relevance. This formed the earliest roots of his mindset, one that balanced respect for identity with appetite for transformation. Beyond academia, the shifting tides of regional geopolitics, energy economies, and global expectations shaped his sensibilities. In a Gulf state increasingly under the world's scrutiny, he internalized the interplay of diplomacy, economics, and soft power. The education he received was both academic and existential, a preparation for leadership in a world where small nations could have outsized influence. As the desert sun set over Doha's minarets and rising skyscrapers, Sheikh Mohammed emerged not just as a scholar but as a potential architect of his country's future. His early education, rooted in economics and business but enriched by the ambience of a nation in flux, laid the foundation for a leadership defined by balance, ambition, and vision. First steps into public life, from researcher to initiator. In 2003, fresh from his studies and the shifting sands of his homeland, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al-Thani took his first official step into public life, not with grand titles or fanfare, but quietly as an economic researcher at the Supreme Council for Family Affairs or Ruling Family Council of Qatar. That modest assignment belied what was to come. As an economic researcher, he studied data, markets, national finances, quietly observing how decisions made in boardrooms and ministries could reshape the lives of everyday Qataris. For a young man who grew up seeing Qatar decamp from purling village routes toward LNG-fueled wealth and soaring skyscrapers, this job offered a window from theory to real-world levers that shape a nation's destiny. By 2005, he had earned promotion to Director of Economic Affairs, a leap that marked his first serious taste of influence and responsibility. In that role, he wasn't just crunching numbers. He was helping chart the economic course of a country riding the wave of hydrocarbon wealth, grappling with modernization pressures, and exploring diversification beyond oil and gas. These were not ceremonial tasks. They were foundation-laying moves that would influence the trajectory of Qatar's economy for years to come. Yet even this was only a beginning. By 2009, Sheikh Mohammed broadened his scope. He became director of the Small and Medium Enterprises Support Project and concurrently director of the Department of Public and Private Sectors Partnership at the Ministry of Business and Trade. It was a clear signal. He would not only shape macroeconomic policy, but also champion grassroots business. entrepreneurship, and the engines of everyday commerce. That same year, he launched Enterprise Qatar, a new institution dedicated to providing technical and financial support to small and medium-sized enterprises (SMEs). This move spoke volumes about his emerging mindset, a recognition that for Qatar to thrive in a post-oil future, wealth shouldn't just flow from gas wells. It should circulate through businesses, innovation, and the aspirations of its people. In a society accustomed to state-driven wealth, Enterprise Qatar was fresh, a push for diversification, economic resilience, and the creation of opportunity beyond fossil fuel rent. Still, the path was not glamorous or guaranteed. Early public service life meant long hours, navigating bureaucracy, balancing tradition and modernization, and working under the quiet scrutiny that comes with belonging to the ruling elite. For Sheikh Mohammed, those years were formative. They taught him the mechanics of governance, the complexities of economic policy, and the quiet patience and pressure behind meaningful reform. From quiet reformer to rising star, the political rise begins when Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Al-Thani took his first public service steps. Few could have predicted the magnitude his trajectory would reach. But between 2003 and 2013, a decade of steady climb, quiet strategy, and bold institutional moves, he laid the foundation of a career that would change Qatar's course. In 2003, fresh from his university degree in economics and business, Mohammed began as an economic researcher on the staff of the ruling family's council. Within just 2 years, he ascended to the role of Director of Economic Affairs 2005 to 2009, marking his first exposure to real economic policy levers. This period wasn't about glamour, but behind-the-scenes analysis, national data, budgeting, and insight into how oil and gas wealth could be transformed into sustainable development. It was during these years that Mohammed first sensed the fragility of resource-based prosperity and began conceiving a broader vision, one in which Qatari wealth would seed innovation, entrepreneurship, and long-term resilience. That vision erupted into action by 2009, appointed Director of the Small and Medium Enterprises Support Project and Head of the Public-Private Sectors Partnership at the Ministry of Business and Trade, Mohammed launched Enterprise Qatar, a bold initiative offering technical and financial support to SMEs. This marked a clear shift from macroeconomic oversight to grassroots economic empowerment, a sign that he was thinking far beyond the corridors of power. He was thinking about everyday economic life, opportunity, and diversification beyond fossil fuels. By 2010 and 2011, his role expanded. He became secretary to the personal representative of the Emir for follow-up affairs at the princely court, Amiri Diwan, while also securing high-level corporate governance roles, including deputy chairmanship of the board at a national mining company. In 2011, he was named chairman of the Executive Committee for SME Development and chairman of the board at a major investment holding entity, weaving together state-driven diversification, private sector incentives, and developmental governance. It was a time of building institutions, networks, reputation, but also of learning the complexity of public-private partnerships, the challenges of shifting an economy founded on hydrocarbons toward entrepreneurship, the balancing act of traditional governance and modern ambitions. Through each appointment, he accumulated skills, economic acumen, stakeholder management, bureaucratic navigation, and strategic foresight. Then in 2013, the shift became unmistakable. He transitioned into diplomacy, appointed as Assistant Foreign Minister for International Cooperation Affairs. This step wasn't a detour, it was strategic, aligning his economic development mindset with foreign relations, embedding Qatar's outward economic ambitions in a diplomatic, from bureaucrat to national stage, entry into national politics. By the early 2010s, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al-Thani's quiet work in economic reform and institution building had already built a formidable resume. But the coming years would mark a decisive shift. From technocrat and policymaker behind the scenes to a national-level leader shaping Qatar's future on a broader canvas. After rising through roles such as Director of Economic Affairs, spearheading small and medium enterprise support, and running public-private partnerships, Mohammed had by 2012 attained the rank of Undersecretary, a recognition of his growing influence within governmental circles. Then in 2013, he received a key promotion. He was appointed Assistant Foreign Minister for International Cooperation Affairs. This was more than a new title. It thrust him into the heart of Qatar's foreign policy architecture, a world where diplomacy, international aid, global alliances, and strategic statcraft take precedence over domestic economic plans. The transition marked a pivotal broadening of his mandate. No longer confined to economic portfolios, he now engaged with global actors, shaped international cooperation policies aligned with the country's long-term vision, notably the Qatar National Vision 2030, and played a key role in reframing how Qatar projected itself to the world. Under this new role, Mohammed began to embody a different form of power, soft power, diplomatic clout, and strategic influence. Qatar's economic ambitions under his earlier stewardship gained global resonance through international cooperation, development aid, and cross-border partnerships. Embedding economic strategy within foreign policy, observers began to see him not just as an economic reformer or an administrator, but as a statesman with a global vision. This shift also meant navigating a more complex labyrinth: interstate rivalries, regional tensions, international scrutiny, and the delicate balance of Gulf geopolitics. His appointment came at a time when the Gulf region was undergoing significant flux, and Qatar needed voices that combined domestic policy understanding with diplomatic sophistication. Mohammed offered both. By 2014, he was also tasked with overseeing the restructuring of the Qatar Fund for Development (QFD), reinforcing his dual identity as both development-oriented reformer and global diplomat. This blend of domestic and international responsibility laid the groundwork for eventual elevation to more senior national offices. Thus, the early 2010s marked the moment when Mohammed's career arc pivoted from behind the scenes economic policy making to the center of Qatar's national and international politics. The foundations laid in GDP numbers, SME reports, and economic diversification plans now merged with diplomacy, strategy, and global influence. Path to the pinnacle, the road to becoming Prime Minister. The ascent of Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al-Thani from behind-the-scenes economic technocrat to the helm of government as Prime Minister of State of Qatar did not happen overnight. It was the result of a decade-plus of strategic positioning, consolidation, and trust-building within the corridors of power. By the mid-2010s, Mohammed's trajectory was unmistakable. After graduating in economics and business and early roles in economic research and SME promotion, he was appointed Assistant Foreign Minister for International Cooperation Affairs in 2013. That step marked his transition from domestic economic policymaker to diplomat, giving him exposure to the international stage and aligning him with Qatar's emerging, outward-facing ambitions. By 2016, he assumed the role of Foreign Minister. In January 2016, Mohammed took over as Minister of Foreign Affairs, inheriting one of the most delicate and high-stakes portfolios in the Gulf, where diplomacy, regional tension, and global energy politics converge. His stewardship coincided with turbulent regional shifts. Navigating these successfully demonstrated his capacity for calm under pressure, strategic thinking, and diplomatic finesse. As his global credentials rose, so too did his standing at home. On the 15th of November 2017, he was elevated to the post of Deputy Prime Minister, a clear signal that within the ruling structure, he was being prepared for more responsibility. In parallel, from 2018 onward, he headed key economic leverage points. He became Chairman of the Qatar Investment Authority (QIA), giving him direct influence over Qatar's sovereign investments abroad. Meanwhile, as Chairman of the Qatar Fund for Development (QFFD) since 2014, the body responsible for Qatar's global development and aid efforts, Mohammed had cemented his image as a statesman concerned not only with national growth but international cooperation, global health, education, and long-term diplomacy. All the while, Qatar was navigating a volatile Middle East, global energy uncertainty, and evolving alliances. Mohammed's blend of economic foresight, diplomatic acumen, and institutional stewardship made him uniquely positioned as a leader who understood both Qatar's internal needs and its external ambitions. Finally, on the 7th of March 2023, after the previous Prime Minister resigned, the Emir issued Amiri Decree No. 2 of 2023. Mohammed was appointed as Prime Minister while retaining his responsibilities as Foreign Minister. That decision was more than a formal promotion. It was the culmination of years of layered, deliberate preparation, from economic research wings to the global diplomatic stage, from SME-driven diversification to sovereign investment strategy, from ministerial responsibility to the top executive seat. His journey had been shaped by vision, patience, competence, and quiet political mastery. The first 100 days, Qatar's new rhythm. When Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani stepped into the role of Prime Minister, the world expected a calm transition. Qatar however, witnessed something far more powerful: a shift in rhythm, a new tempo, a leadership style that blended precision with quiet intensity. His first 100 days did not begin with grand speeches or dramatic public gestures. They began at dawn, inside a war room-like conference chamber, where economic analysts, security chiefs, and sector ministers gathered around a long glass table. The agenda was simple but heavy: accelerate progress without disrupting stability. The core philosophy of Qatar's identity. One of his earliest moves was sharpening Qatar's economic direction, not through loud reforms, but through targeted decisions, streamlining investment approvals, boosting strategic industries, and strengthening the country's long-term energy roadmap. Every meeting carried the same tone: calm, technical, determined. On day 27, he quietly pushed forward an internal modernization, pushed digitization of public services, data-driven administration, and efficiency metrics for ministries. It wasn't glamorous, but it was transformative. This was Mohammed bin Abdulrahman's leadership: silent upgrades with loud impact. Foreign policy saw its own recalibration. The world already knew him as Qatar's influential foreign minister, but now he wielded both roles with a deeper sense of responsibility. In the first 3 months, he reinforced Qatar's humanitarian presence, strengthened Gulf partnerships, and amplified Doha's role as a global mediator. Meetings ran late into the night, yet he never appeared tiredly focused. Inside cabinet meetings, his style became evident. He listened more than he spoke, but when he did speak, the room shifted. His questions were sharp, his expectations clear. "Don't tell me what is difficult," he would say. "Tell me what is possible." Perhaps the most defining moment of these 100 days came during a surprise review visit to an infrastructure project. There were no cameras, no entourage, just the Prime Minister walking through the site, asking engineers direct, technical questions. Workers were surprised, but inspired. Leadership felt closer. Public sentiment responded, not with fireworks or viral moments, but with something more valuable: renewed confidence. Qatar felt steady, futuristic, and intentional under his direction. The first 100 days did not rewrite Qatar's story. They sharpened it. They signaled that the nation's next chapter would be guided by a leader who preferred action over noise, precision over politics, and progress over applause. Domestic governance and reforms, shaping a modern Qatar. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's transition into the role of Prime Minister brought more than continuity. It introduced a decisive push for domestic governance and reform. Qatar, a small but ambitious nation, demanded leadership that could merge tradition with modernization. The first months revealed his strategy: calculated reforms with immediate impact, yet grounded in long-term vision. One of his earliest priorities was administrative efficiency. Ministries, long accustomed to conventional practices, were assessed through rigorous audits. New performance metrics, digital monitoring systems, and cross-departmental collaboration initiatives were introduced. By emphasizing transparency and accountability, he signaled that governance was no longer just ceremonial, it was results-driven. Economic policy was intricately tied to governance. Through targeted reforms, He enhanced fiscal oversight, streamlined bureaucratic procedures for entrepreneurs, and incentivized innovation in sectors beyond hydrocarbons. Small and medium enterprises already a focus during his earlier career were given a new framework to thrive, reducing red tape and improving access to funding. The entrepreneurial ecosystem began aligning directly with national growth objectives, reflecting a broader vision for economic diversification. Education and healthcare reforms also received his attention. Modern curricula emphasizing STEM and entrepreneurship were rolled out, while healthcare systems were optimized through public-private partnerships and tech integration. These efforts were designed not only to improve efficiency, but also to prepare Qatar's human capital for the 21st century. Youth programs, vocational training, and digital literacy initiatives were implemented, ensuring that modernization reached every citizen, not just the urban elite. Infrastructure, another cornerstone of domestic reform, saw strategic investments. Roads, public transport, and urban development projects were evaluated for long-term sustainability. Under his guidance, planning shifted from rapid expansion to smart growth, balancing urban development with environmental stewardship. Civil society initiatives reflected his understanding that progress required inclusion. Policies supporting women's employment, youth engagement, and rural development were actively promoted. Each program carried his unmistakable signature: pragmatic, data-driven, and socially conscious. By the end of this period, Qatar had not experienced a revolution of noise or spectacle. Instead, it had undergone a methodical, disciplined recalibration, strengthening institutions and enhancing citizen trust. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman's approach illustrated a simple yet powerful principle. Modern governance is the quiet work of vision, precision, and implementation. Global diplomacy, Qatar's voice on the world stage. As Prime Minister, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani did not confine his vision to domestic reforms alone. Qatar's strategic position in the Gulf, its wealth, and its historical role as a regional mediator demanded a leader capable of leveraging influence on the global stage. In his tenure, diplomacy became a precise instrument, balancing national interest with international credibility. From his earliest days, he emphasized Qatar as a bridge builder, small yet ambitious. The country's voice needed to resonate far beyond its borders. He strengthened Qatar's role in international organizations, maintained a steady presence at the United Nations, and engaged with both regional neighbors and global powers. Every initiative, whether humanitarian aid, development projects, or peace mediation, was carefully calibrated to demonstrate Qatar's reliability and vision. In regional politics, his approach was both assertive and measured. He navigated complex relationships with Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) states, balancing Qatar's sovereignty with the necessity of alliances. Strategic dialogues with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Oman were reinforced, alongside crisis management during periods of tension. Mohammed's ability to diffuse conflict while maintaining national autonomy became a hallmark of his leadership. On the global economic front, he positioned Qatar as a hub for trade, investment, and innovation. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, Qatar Investment Authority, became not just a financial tool, but a diplomatic lever. Strategic investments in key sectors across Europe, Asia, and the Americas strengthened both economic ties and political influence, showcasing Qatar's capacity as a global partner. Humanitarian diplomacy also defined his early tenure, from supporting refugee initiatives to funding health and education programs abroad. Mohammed projected Qatar as a responsible and proactive actor, earning respect and soft power that rivaled even much larger nations. His engagement in conflict mediation, sometimes behind closed doors, often quietly publicized, cemented Qatar's reputation as a neutral, yet influential actor capable of bridging divides. By the end of this period, Qatar was no longer perceived merely as a wealthy Gulf state. It had emerged as a thoughtful, strategic, and globally influential nation, guided by a prime minister who understood that influence was earned through consistency, expertise, and careful orchestration of both domestic and foreign policy. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman's diplomacy demonstrated a profound lesson. True global leadership for a small state comes not from size or force, but from vision, patience, and strategic precision. Through calculated engagement, Qatar's voice on the world stage became resonant, respected, and indispensable. Guardians of the desert, military strategy, and national security. For a nation like Qatar, small in size but rich in ambition, national security is not just a matter of defense, it is the backbone of sovereignty and survival. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani approached this responsibility with the same meticulous strategy that had defined his domestic and diplomatic initiatives. His vision, a military capable, modern, and adaptive, yet perfectly aligned with Qatar's economic and geopolitical realities. Within the first months as Prime Minister, he oversaw a comprehensive review of Qatar's defense apparatus. Long-standing structures were evaluated for efficiency, capability, and readiness. Mohammed insisted on modernization without extravagance, investing in cutting-edge technology, intelligence capabilities, and rapid response units while maintaining fiscal discipline. Every procurement decision, every drill, and every alliance was carefully calibrated to strengthen Qatar's defensive posture. Regional security, particularly in the volatile Gulf, required both deterrence and diplomacy. Mohammed balanced strategic partnerships with the United States, France, and other key allies, ensuring Qatar's access to advanced defense systems while retaining full operational independence. Joint exercises and intelligence sharing agreements enhanced readiness and sent a clear signal. Qatar could defend its sovereignty while remaining a trusted partner on the global stage. Counterterrorism and internal security were another focus, recognizing the modern threats of asymmetric warfare, cyber attacks, and regional instability. Mohammed invested in specialized units capable of rapid deployment. Surveillance infrastructure, intelligence analysis, and interagency coordination were upgraded, making Qatar a model of proactive security in the Gulf. One of the defining hallmarks of his strategy was integration of technology with human intelligence. Smart defense systems were coupled with rigorous training programs, ensuring that soldiers, officers, and planners could operate with both precision and adaptability. The goal was clear. Qatar would not merely react to threats, it would anticipate them. But security under Mohammed extended beyond borders. Humanitarian considerations, civil resilience, and strategic planning were interwoven into defense policies. Qatar's military exercises often simulated disaster response, infrastructure protection, and coordination with civil authorities, reflecting a leadership philosophy that saw security as both shield and enabler of national growth. By the end of this period, Qatar's armed forces had evolved into a lean, technologically advanced, and strategically integrated force, capable of defending the nation while supporting its broader ambitions. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani had transformed military strategy into an instrument not of aggression, but of safeguarding sovereignty, fostering regional stability, empowering citizens, social welfare, and civil reforms. For Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani, leadership was not only measured by skyscrapers or international deals, it was reflected in the everyday lives of Qatar's citizens. Upon taking office, he emphasized that economic growth and global influence must go hand in hand with social development, ensuring that progress touched all layers of society. One of his first priorities was youth empowerment, recognizing that the next generation would define Qatar's future. He championed programs to enhance education, entrepreneurship, and skill development. Vocational training centers were expanded. Scholarships for higher education abroad were increased, and initiatives fostering innovation and technology were prioritized. The aim was clear. Qatar's young citizens would not just inherit wealth, they would inherit opportunity and capability. Women's participation in society also received a significant boost. Mohammed promoted reforms that encouraged women to assume leadership roles in business, government, and academia. Mentorship programs, professional development workshops, and legal reforms were introduced to ensure equality of opportunity while respecting cultural foundations. Rural and underdeveloped areas were another focus. Through infrastructure projects, healthcare outreach, and community programs, Mohammed worked to bridge gaps between urban prosperity and regional development. Clinics, schools, and community centers were upgraded, creating tangible improvements in living standards across the country. Healthcare reform under his leadership emphasized accessibility, quality, and efficiency. New hospitals and clinics were built with advanced technologies, and preventive health programs were introduced to reduce long-term burdens. Public awareness campaigns encouraged healthy lifestyles, while digital platforms streamlined patient care and reduced administrative hurdles. Social safety nets were strengthened as well. Programs supporting low-income families, the elderly, and vulnerable groups were expanded, ensuring that economic growth translated into tangible benefits for all citizens. Mohammed's philosophy was consistent. Wealth is meaningful only when it uplifts society, not just the elite. Cultural preservation and civil engagement were also promoted. Museums, arts programs, and heritage projects received government support, ensuring that modernization did not erase Qatar's identity. Citizens were encouraged to participate in policy discussions, creating a collaborative atmosphere between government and society. By the end of these initial reforms, Qatar had begun to transform into a nation where governance was human-centric, inclusive, and forward-looking. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani demonstrated that true leadership combines strategic vision with compassion, and that a nation's strength is measured not just in power or wealth, but in the well-being of its people. Forging prosperity, Qatar's economic achievements. Under Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani, Qatar's economic landscape entered a phase of deliberate transformation, balancing its traditional hydrocarbon wealth with ambitious diversification and global investment. His leadership demonstrated that economic power is not just about resources, but vision, strategy, and execution. One of the cornerstones of his approach was strategic diversification, recognizing that dependence on oil and gas could limit long-term growth. He promoted investments in technology, education, finance, and tourism. Major initiatives included creating economic zones that fostered innovation, streamlining regulations for small and medium enterprises, and incentivizing startups. By connecting policy with execution, he ensured that entrepreneurship became a driving engine of national growth. The Qatar Investment Authority, overseen by Mohammed, became a vehicle for global influence and domestic security. Strategic investments in international markets were designed not only to secure returns, but also to strengthen political and economic alliances. From tech giants in Europe to infrastructure projects in Asia, these moves reinforced Qatar's role as a financially savvy and globally engaged state. Domestically, he launched infrastructure projects that enhanced transportation, energy efficiency, and urban planning. The 2020 FIFA World Cup had already showcased Qatar's capacity for rapid, high-profile development, but under Mohammed's guidance, these efforts were institutionalized for long-term sustainable growth. Roads, ports, and digital networks were upgraded with a clear eye toward future economic potential. Fiscal policy under his leadership emphasized stability and prudence. Budgets were aligned with strategic priorities, subsidies optimized, and public-private partnerships encouraged. These measures ensured that Qatar's economy remained resilient even amidst global market fluctuations and regional uncertainties. Technology and innovation receives special focus. By fostering research centers, incubators, and smart city projects, Mohammed promoted a knowledge-based economy that complemented Qatar's traditional strengths. Citizens were empowered to become creators and innovators, transforming Qatar into more than a resource-rich nation. It became a hub for ideas, skills, and sustainable industries. By the end of this period, the results were tangible: steady GDP growth, increased foreign investment, rising global confidence, and an entrepreneurial ecosystem that promised future resilience and prosperity. Qatar had evolved from a nation of resources to a nation of strategy, foresight, and global economic influence. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's economic achievements demonstrated a fundamental truth: wealth is powerful, but vision and execution define legacy. Qatar's economy was no longer merely sustaining the present. It was forging a path for generations to come. Trials and turbulence, crises, challenges, and controversies No leadership journey is without turbulence, and for Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani, the path to shaping modern Qatar was marked by crises that tested vision, resolve, and diplomacy. From economic pressures to regional tensions, each challenge demanded both strategic foresight and measured action. One of the first major tests emerged from global economic volatility. Oil and gas prices fluctuated unpredictably, threatening national revenue streams and investment projections. Mohammed's response was proactive. Fiscal reserves were mobilized, budgets recalibrated, and diversification initiatives accelerated. Rather than reacting to shocks, he used crises as a catalyst to strengthen Qatar's long-term resilience. Internally, reform efforts occasionally met resistance. Bureaucratic inertia, entrenched practices, and social expectations created friction with some civil servants and stakeholders. The push for modernization in governance, public services, and digital infrastructure triggered debates, sometimes intensifying public scrutiny. Yet Mohammed navigated these pressures with patience, using data-driven arguments and careful consultation to maintain momentum without alienating the public or institutions. Regional geopolitics presented an even more complex arena. Qatar's independent foreign policy occasionally drew criticism from neighboring states, with disagreements over alliances, mediations, and trade agreements. Mohammed had to balance diplomacy with assertiveness, ensuring Qatar's sovereignty while mitigating tensions that could escalate into broader conflicts. Every decision carried weight not only for Qatar, but for the Gulf's delicate balance of power. Global controversies, including perceptions of Qatar's role in international labor practices and human rights, required careful navigation. Mohammed implemented reforms, strengthened monitoring mechanisms, and communicated progress to international partners. He understood that Qatar's reputation on the world stage was inseparable from domestic accountability. Even with such challenges, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman's approach combined pragmatism with vision. Each crisis became an opportunity to refine policies, build institutional capacity, and reinforce public confidence. Mistakes, setbacks, and criticisms were acknowledged, not ignored, a hallmark of his leadership style. By the end of these turbulent periods, Qatar had emerged more resilient, strategically agile, and globally credible. Mohammed had not only managed crises, he had transformed them into stepping stones, demonstrating that leadership is measured not just by success in calm waters, but by how a nation navigates storms under a steady, visionary hand. Challenges, controversies, and crises are inevitable, but under Mohammed's stewardship, Qatar learned to thrive through turbulence, turning obstacles into instruments of growth and legitimacy. Mind of a leader, psychology, and work style. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's effectiveness as Prime Minister is rooted not only in policies or decisions, but in the architecture of his mind and the rhythm of his work. Understanding his psychology provides a window into why Qatar has grown steadily under his leadership. Discipline defines his day. From dawn, he reviews intelligence briefs, economic reports, and international correspondence with meticulous attention to detail. He absorbs facts quickly, identifies patterns, and anticipates potential challenges. For him, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is strategic leverage. Decision-making under pressure is a hallmark, even when facing simultaneous domestic, regional, and global issues. Mohammed maintains composure. He rarely reacts impulsively. Instead, he analyzes, consults, and models outcomes, ensuring that each choice aligns with Qatar's long-term vision. This calm decisiveness inspires confidence among ministers, diplomats, and citizens alike. Communication is another instrument of influence. Mohammed speaks with clarity, brevity, and precision, ensuring messages are unambiguous yet diplomatic. In meetings, he listens more than he speaks, allowing diverse perspectives to surface. His ability to combine active listening with assertive guidance ensures that decisions are collaborative, yet firmly anchored in leadership. Strategic thinking is evident across sectors. Economic initiatives, infrastructure planning, and foreign policy moves are interconnected, reflecting a systems-level approach. Nothing occurs in isolation. Every policy, investment, and reform is part of a larger plan to position Qatar as a resilient, influential, and innovative nation. Charisma is subtle, not performative. Mohammed inspires through competence, integrity, and consistency rather than theatrics. Staff and citizens alike respond to the quiet assurance of expertise, a style that prioritizes results over optics. Work ethic is relentless. Long hours, late-night consultations, and continuous engagement define his routine. Yet he balances intensity with focus on precision rather than mere activity. Every meeting, briefing, or inspection is purposeful, reflecting his belief that effective leadership is measured by impact, not visibility. Emotionally intelligent, he gauges morale and public sentiment with acute sensitivity. Policies are designed not only to achieve outcomes, but to sustain trust, inclusion, and citizen engagement. He understands that human motivation drives institutional success. Ultimately, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's leadership psychology blends discipline, foresight, patience, and emotional intelligence. His work style methodical, strategic, and principled ensures that Qatar's governance remains stable, adaptive, and forward-looking. In understanding the mind behind the office, one sees the engine powering Qatar's rise, a leader whose intellect, temperament, measuring influence, Qatar on the global stage. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's leadership has not only reshaped Qatar internally, but has also redefined its global standing. In an era dominated by superpowers, small nations often struggle to make their voices heard. Yet under his stewardship, Qatar has demonstrated that influence is not dictated solely by size. It is earned through strategy, credibility, and vision. Global power rankings are usually dominated by military strength, economic clout, and geopolitical reach. Qatar may not match the largest nations in sheer size or population, but Mohammed has leveraged a blend of soft and hard power to position the country as a respected player in the Middle East and beyond. Through diplomacy, economic investments, and international initiatives, Qatar has become a hub for dialogue, mediation, and cross-border cooperation. Soft power has been central. Mohammed's initiatives in humanitarian aid, development projects, education, and cultural diplomacy have amplified Qatar's voice on global issues. Programs such as the Qatar Fund for Development and Investments in global education and health initiatives have positioned the country as a partner in solving global challenges, earning respect from allies and neutral observers alike. Economic leverage also drives influence. Under Mohammed, Qatar investment authorities, strategic global investments have extended beyond finance. They are tools of influence, aligning economic interests with diplomatic engagement. Qatar's ability to engage in international partnerships, sponsor global forums, and attract foreign talent demonstrates an unusual combination of economic clout and strategic vision. Military and security contributions, though modest in scale compared to major powers, are strategically significant. Partnerships with allies, advanced defense acquisitions, and a focus on regional stability allow Qatar to project security influence disproportionate to its size. Its role in mediating regional conflicts further enhances credibility and strengthens the perception of authority. Even media and cultural initiatives have been utilized to amplify Qatar's influence. Through platforms like Al Jazeera, international sporting events, and cultural exchanges, the nation has become a soft power engine, capable of shaping narratives and fostering global engagement. By combining soft power, economic strategy, and precise security diplomacy, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani has placed Qatar in a rare position for a small nation respected, heard, and influential globally. In global power rankings, Qatar may not lead in scale, but it ranks high in strategic relevance and credibility, a testament to leadership that transcends size. Mohammed's vision demonstrates a timeless principle. True influence arises not from numbers alone, but from foresight, execution, and the ability to connect national strength with global purpose. Honors and milestones, cementing a legacy. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's career is not only defined by policies and governance, it is also punctuated by awards, honors, and historic achievements that reflect both national and global recognition of his leadership. Each accolade is a testament to his strategic vision, diplomatic skill, and unwavering commitment to Qatar's rise. Nationally, he has been recognized for his transformative contributions to Qatar's economic, social, and infrastructural development. His leadership in modernizing governance, promoting education, and strengthening public welfare earned him accolades from civic organizations and state institutions. Each recognition highlighted his ability to combine visionary strategy with tangible, measurable outcomes for citizens. Internationally, Mohammed's diplomatic engagements have brought him awards and honors from multiple countries and organizations. His efforts in conflict mediation, humanitarian aid, and global development programs positioned Qatar as a reliable and influential partner on the world stage. Several foreign governments and international bodies have formally recognized his role in fostering dialogue, promoting stability, and advancing global cooperation. Under his guidance, Qatar achieved historic milestones that strengthened its global presence. The strategic growth of the Qatar Investment Authority, the success of nationwide reforms in infrastructure and technology, and the nation's prominent role in hosting international events, such as major sports tournaments and global forums, symbolize a new era in Qatari governance. These accomplishments are not only symbolic, they are benchmarks that future generations will measure against. Mohammed's personal achievements also reflect a unique blend of intellect, diplomacy, and leadership acumen. He became one of the youngest foreign ministers in the Gulf region to attain international recognition, demonstrating the impact of focused strategy and relentless dedication. His rise from economic technocrat to prime minister showcases a trajectory of merit-based leadership that inspires both citizens and peers globally. Cultural and humanitarian achievements further enrich his portfolio. Initiatives in education, youth empowerment, and global humanitarian projects have received multiple awards from international NGOs and institutions, highlighting the humanitarian dimension of his leadership. These honors underline a philosophy that true power is measured not only by policy, but by the positive influence on human lives across borders. Through awards, achievements, and historic milestones, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani has cemented a legacy that balances national pride with international respect. Each recognition underscores a singular truth. Leadership is defined not only by authority, but by the lasting impact one leaves on a nation and the world. The man beyond the office, personal life of a leader, behind the corridors of power and the grand chambers of governance, lies a life unseen by most. The private world of Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani, a man who balances immense responsibility with personal grounding. Understanding his personal life reveals the human dimension of a leader who often appears solely defined by policies and diplomacy. Family remains the cornerstone of his life. Though a public figure of global prominence, Mohammed values intimate family time. He maintains close ties with his parents, siblings, and extended family, often seeking counsel and sharing insights. This familial foundation, rooted in tradition and trust, provides him both comfort and perspective amid the pressures of office. Routine and discipline extend beyond governance into personal habits. Early mornings, reading, and structured planning characterize his daily life. Even brief moments of leisure are approached with intention, whether exercising, walking, or engaging in hobbies. He treats personal time as rejuvenation for focused leadership. Hobbies reflect a blend of intellect and cultural appreciation. Mohammed enjoys reading history, economics, and global affairs, which fuels both personal curiosity and professional insight. He also has a deep appreciation for Qatar's heritage, often participating in cultural events, traditional ceremonies, and arts initiatives, ensuring that modern leadership remains connected to identity. Friends and confidants describe him as approachable, thoughtful, and attentive. Despite the layers of bureaucracy and protocols surrounding his office, he cultivates authentic relationships, often listening carefully, valuing counsel, and demonstrating empathy in private interactions. These qualities not only strengthen personal bonds, but enhance his capacity to understand societal needs. Even his international interactions carry a personal touch. Mohammed combines professional acumen with warmth and cultural sensitivity, creating a unique presence in meetings with global leaders. Diplomacy, for him, is not merely transactional, it is a reflection of character and integrity. Faith and values guide his life quietly but decisively. They inform his decisions, ethical standards, and the way he balances ambition with social responsibility. He embodies a principle that power is not an end but a tool to serve citizens, uphold justice, and foster progress. Ultimately, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's personal life illustrates that leadership is as much about human depth as public achievement. Beneath the titles, policies, and global presence exists a man grounded in family, discipline, culture, and values, a leader whose personal character amplifies the strength and credibility of the nation he serves. Shaping tomorrow, vision for Qatar's future. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's leadership is not merely about today, it is profoundly anchored in foresight, strategy, and a vision that spans decades. For a nation poised at the intersection of tradition and ambition, his long-term planning defines the trajectory of Qatar's prosperity, influence, and global presence. Central to his vision is economic diversification and innovation. While hydrocarbons remain a cornerstone, Mohammed aims to transform Qatar into a knowledge-driven economy. Investments in technology, research, startups, and digital infrastructure are designed to cultivate a self-sustaining ecosystem where citizens innovate, create, and compete globally. Education, particularly in STEM fields, is prioritized to prepare the next generation for a future where Qatar can thrive beyond natural resources. Urban development and sustainability also dominate his strategic agenda. Infrastructure projects are not only functional, but environmentally conscious, aligning with global trends in climate responsibility. Smart cities, renewable energy initiatives, and modern transport systems reflect his intent to balance modernization with ecological stewardship, ensuring that Qatar's growth does not compromise its future. In social policy, Mohammed envisions a more inclusive, engaged, and empowered citizenry. Youth programs, women's leadership initiatives, and civic participation are designed to cultivate a generation of informed, skilled, and socially responsible leaders. Social welfare, healthcare accessibility, and quality education remain pillars of a society where progress is measured not just in GDP, but in human potential and opportunity. On the international stage, his vision emphasizes strategic influence, diplomacy, and soft power. Qatar is positioned as a mediator, a hub for dialogue, and a partner in addressing global challenges such as humanitarian crises, climate change, and regional stability. Mohammed's foresight recognizes that Qatar's security and prosperity are intertwined with global engagement, and that influence must be earned through credibility, not coercion. Defense and security are similarly forward-looking. Investments in modern technology, intelligence systems, and strategic alliances are designed to anticipate threats before they materialize, ensuring national safety while enabling long-term development. Ultimately, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's vision is holistic. Economic resilience, social cohesion, environmental responsibility, and global relevance converge to create a blueprint for a nation that thrives in every dimension. It is a leadership philosophy where today's policies are carefully calibrated seeds for tomorrow's legacy. Under his guidance, Qatar is not simply navigating the present, it is charting a sustainable, prosperous, and influential path for generations to come. Blending ambition with responsibility, power with purpose, legacy in motion, the lasting global impact. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's tenure as Prime Minister is not merely a chapter in Qatar's history, it is a transformative epic that has reshaped the nation and reverberated across the globe. His leadership, defined by strategy, vision, and resilience, has left footprints that will guide Qatar for decades to come. Domestically, he has strengthened institutions, modernized governance, and fostered economic diversification, creating a resilient framework capable of sustaining long-term growth. Citizens witness not just policy changes, but tangible improvements in education, healthcare, infrastructure, and social welfare. His reforms have empowered youth, amplified women's participation, and fostered a society that balances tradition with innovation. The nation's rhythm has shifted more efficient, inclusive, and forward-looking under the precision of his governance. Internationally, Qatar's role has evolved from that of a small Gulf state to a recognized global player. Through diplomacy, humanitarian initiatives, and strategic economic investments, Mohammed has positioned Qatar as a bridge builder and trusted partner. The nation's voice is respected in international forums. Its influence extends across continents, and its presence in conflict, mediation, and global development initiatives highlights the soft power of thoughtful leadership. Economically, his vision has secured Qatar's place as a hub of innovation and investment. Startups thrive, technology drives progress, and sustainable development projects ensure wealth is not just accumulated, but strategically deployed. Global partnerships and sovereign investments have amplified Qatar's influence, making it a country that can negotiate, collaborate, and shape outcomes on its own terms. His leadership philosophy demonstrates that power is meaningful only when coupled with responsibility, foresight, and ethics. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani has shown that even a relatively small nation can wield disproportionate impact when guided by strategic clarity, institutional strength, and humanitarian vision. The lasting legacy is therefore multidimensional, a nation strengthened from within, a global reputation elevated, and a blueprint for leadership that combines ambition with compassion. Policies, reforms, and alliances are no longer temporary achievements, they are structural transformations that will define Qatar's trajectory for generations. As the sun rises over Doha's skyline, it reflects more than a city. It reflects a nation shaped by a leader whose foresight, intellect, and resolve have rewritten the possibilities for Qatar. Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al-Thani's story is not just political, it is historical, global, and enduring. His impact is a living testament to what visionary leadership can achieve when power meets purpose,